Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Chat EbT. I'm your host, Mohammed Ebrahim Tayob. Now, a lot of times on the show, we've talked about entrepreneurship, people going into business for themselves. And with me today, I have Theo, who just, we've had so many chats, Theo, and you have such a passion for entrepreneurship. So I said, we got to get you on the show and listen to what you got to say. So, Theo, welcome. And what do you want to talk about?
Awesome, Mo. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Looking forward to the discussion.
Oh, lovely. So, as I mentioned, like a big part of the show actually stemmed from, talking to people who have created things of their own, who have gone into entrepreneurship, built up brands from the ground up, whether it be, a personal brand like a social media influencer or an actual brick and mortar brand. Now, I understand that you yourself have had quite a lot of experience both in corporate and entrepreneurship. So tell us a little bit about, where you're coming from and what has pushed you towards the focus on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, sure. Love to share my journey. So, entrepreneurship is so sexy, right? So everyone thinks it's the coolest thing to do. We grew up watching people like, in my time it was Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and it was the dream. It was the way of getting financial security. It was a way of achieving all of those dreams, the helicopter and the like. And I guess I drank that Kool-Aid and I was really into it. Never left me though. The one thing I realized through my journey was, wow, it is tough. It's not easy. It's a tough journey. And back in the day, yes, we still were fortunate in that there were the corporate world was building up from the early 2000s odd, and it was absorbing a lot of people. So entrepreneurship was a nice to have, wasn't essential. Mm-hmm. A lot of governments were post-colonization, were growing, were starting to employ a lot of people as well. So there was a lot of growth for people to get a decent income. Mm-hmm. That's changed though, changed rapidly. And now, entrepreneurship is becoming more of a must-have as a nice-to-have type thing.
And as I understand it now, so obviously now you've created your own company. Now you're back in the entrepreneurship world, right?
Correct.
Called Lawyers, right?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the company.
Okay, so got involved in, did a lot of project management, program management in the corporate space. Learned a lot. I love that experience. Learned about modeling. Learned about business architecture and the like. And small businesses never get the opportunity to deal with these big consulting firms, because that's where a lot of the research and development gets done, and that corporates are able to afford that, so they pay for that, and I got exposed to that. But still, the hunger for entrepreneurship was always there. Went the BCom degree via WITS, but still didn't answer the questions I was looking for. Now I realized a lot of it was our schooling as well as varsity constantly teaches you about business, not how to do business. And then we said, okay, together, myself and a couple of other co-founders, legal people and business consultants, we looked at the model that's currently out there and said, okay, there's certainly a gap. We started it from a legal perspective first, hence the name Lawyers, and went down into try and create legal support for small businesses. And then quickly we realized, our whole SME market, the small
medium
enterprise business is under stress because there's just no guidance for them. So your top consulting firms, the top 5 consulting firms, probably I think they deal with turnovers of companies that are doing 50 million
so they don't even
a year or more, right?
SMEs are not even on their radar.
Not even on their radar. They just don't have the capacity for SMEs. And we realized, okay, it's well and good for businesses to start up and have a good regulatory structure, but that's not enough. You need income.
Yeah.
And we realized that there's a lack of know-how. There's South Africans, and a lot of Africa actually, a lot of the global South actually, are very innovative individuals.
Yes,
very determined, driven, and they will make a plan. And we realized that there was a study, I don't know if you caught that study, Mo, done in December last year, Remitly is a mobile company up in the
Okay.
States. They took the grid, thing called a grid scale. It was established by Dr. Angela Duckworth. And that's how they've been trying to estimate or predict entrepreneurship
Okay.
via
That's
the
very
grid
interesting.
scale. And they did a survey on 26 odd countries. South Africa was number 1. So we've got a high grid for ambiguity, for complexity.
Yeah.
But our problem is we just unable to convert that into proper action. And that's where we fall flat. I think we ended up being 8th or 16th on that scale. So yeah.
And in the sense of converting it, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
In the sense of converting it, is it that just people lack that knowledge of the specific industry they're trying to get into? Or is it more on the nitty-gritties of actually running a business?
Yes, spot on. So what happens is generally people have the expertise. So their competence in their space, they have that. Like a doctor, for example. A doctor, I always like using this example because it's easy to relate to.
Yeah.
So doctors are specialists in their fields, okay, and they do a great job and they study for many years. So they become subject matter experts and medical practitioners. Then they try to open a practice. Now that is running a business.
Yeah.
And that they don't know how to do. And you know, all of us have had that experience where you'll find practices that are amazing. You know, the service, the whole client service, the admin, all of that just works brilliantly.
Yeah.
And then there's those that, nah. Regardless of the skill of the doctor, but the actual practice itself detracts from the quality that the individual practitioner is offering. Now that's a business.
Yeah.
Running, managing people, getting payment in, you know, making sure your entrance is up to standard, client feedback, all of that, using that to improve your business. That's running a business.
Yeah, no, and I think that you're right. There is a huge sort of gap there. You know, I think similar. You know, I love your example. I always love using sports examples, right?
Sure.
And cricket is always the one I always go to. Is in the sense of, you know, you get sometimes the best players in the world that try and they put them in as a captaincy role, and those guys just
100%.
cannot be captains. And that's the thing. You have the best Sachin Tendulkar was a great example.
Yeah.
He was the best batsman ever till today probably, and you know, just wasn't very successful as India's cricket captain. So I think 100% it has that. There's a certain knowledge, that operational knowledge, and that's why you see some people that, you know, might not have gone to school or might not have studied in a particular field, but they are just amazing operators. We always call them operators, you know. So in the sense of lawyers, is that, you know, people giving people that consulting on, you know, how to actually do those small little nitty-gritty things, or explain to us a little bit about how that offering happens.
Yeah, spot on, Mo. And you hit it on the head there. So it doesn't mean that you're a subject matter expert that you generally can lead, like your session example.
Yeah.
So, and you'll notice captains in these teams are not necessarily the best players.
they're not.
Often never.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think of Brian Robson back in the day with Man United, for example. He was back, mid, but he controlled the field from there, and he was one of the best captains at that time. So yeah, spot on. With lawyers, we realized that there's certainly an issue around leadership. Okay, so we've now created an assessment scale where it's free online assessment that you could do as an individual, and it'll score you on 5 different dimensions. Leadership as a foundation is one of the dimensions. Then it's strategy and operations, another big area that's normally missed in business. The third dimension is branding and marketing. The fourth is ICT, because ICT is such an enabler. If you don't get ICT right, and if you don't understand it, you're going to battle.
So just before for the viewers to clarify, ICT that stands for?
Information, Communications and Technologies.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's all the visual aids that we create nowadays, social media, using mobile, using AI, massive part of it. That's all part of ICT. So you got to have a good understanding of that in your business. And the 5th dimension is finance.
Of course, yeah.
So part of lawyers was to get this business consulting structure going to assist the now full inclusive, all-inclusive term is MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, and to support them from a business consulting and a legal perspective. But then we realized we need proper training, because so there's this misnomer, Mo, there's this belief that funding is the biggest issue for new businesses and MSMEs, and that's what holds entrepreneurs back. But research shows no, it's actually their competence, because a lot of businesses that are funded within 6 to the first 24 months, they all are 90% of them. That's the failure rate. 90% failure rate in the first 2 years of small businesses, well-funded businesses. But again, coming back to the competence of the entrepreneur. So we then created Trainers Academy, which is a fully fledged program just on entrepreneurship. Everything that a person needs to know about entrepreneurship.
I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit more. Is you mentioned the thing is entrepreneurship has become more a need than a nice to have, right? Why do you feel like more people are going towards entrepreneurship or starting their own businesses, or even, the word side hustles is being used a lot now, right? As opposed to just having that normal 8 to 5 job, as was the norm for so long.
Great question. So the part of it is driven by what's happening to us as a society, and also we're at a time when it's becoming easier. So let's deal with the societal issue. So from the early 2000s, automation started coming in. Okay, machine learning and the like. Back in the day, I remember with your banks, you had to phone in every time you wanted to change your phone number, or you move home address, you got to phone in, because they had a couple of thousand people sitting doing the admin. With automation, that no longer happens. You do that online yourself, so you become their admin space. And that type of automation has happened throughout the early 2000s. And as a result, companies are now getting less and less headcount because many of those procedures are being automated.
Yeah.
And at the same time, our population constantly grows.
Very true.
So you can see where we're headed from a job opportunity point of view.
There's sort of that bottleneck that's going to be created.
Spot on. There's going to be a scarcity. Government, same. So they were the two main employers of the early 2000s, and even before. Corporates and then government. Governments have become top heavy. They also are now under heavy scrutiny around how they spend their money. So they can't just add people any longer. And most governments around the world are retrenching as opposed to employing.
Yeah.
That's the scenario. Now we're not even talking about the onslaught of AI.
Yeah,
AI
that's
is
a big one.
serious. AI is going to be a serious factor that's going to impact jobs. So up until now, if you lacked skill, if you lacked any skills in the ICT space, you were in trouble. But if you're in the ICT space, you were okay. But now with platforms like Claude, LLM like Claude, that's it. Programmers are in trouble because Claude is able to give you the programming text that you need. So any Tom, Dick, or Mary is now able to do programming.
Yeah, it's a similar scenario. If I look at my whole first year of articles on the CA route, what the first year was required to do was always take minutes in meetings. Today there's a program that does that for you. You don't need somebody to take minutes in meetings.
What is going to do that for you? What is going to do that for you automatically?
100%.
So, and that's a scenario we're in. So definitely technology, but also corporates. In that, I think corporates are focused on profit. Yes, sure. They're not focused on sustainability. Their mandate is not about keeping the population active and happily employed. They're about profit, and that's what they're going to be focusing on. And then there's this enablement, constant enablement. Enablement in that, from an IT perspective, internet access, we know so much more. So yes, it's so much easier to get into business now. So the barrier to entry to business has dropped significantly. But back in the day, you'd need to spend millions on an IT infrastructure to start off a business. Today, you can do it on a subscription model. So
Yeah.
for $600, $700 a month, you can have enough subscriptions of various different tools that helps you run your business. So it's that barrier to entry has dropped from a cost point of view, but I think more from a job security point of view, Mo. I'm not sure if you're aware, but last year, for the first time, graduates for 3 years or longer have been out of a job.
That is,
3
actually, it
years
has
or
been
longer.
such a, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and it was always, I actually was saying that, I've always been this champion of, if you feel passionate about something, please go out and do it, and I still am.
Spot on.
But there is that little bit of a caveat there, because you see people, that are going into these niche sort of degrees and then sitting, as you mentioned, 4 years.
Yeah.
And I looked at when I went on my route, we had jobs lined up while we were in campus.
Exactly.
And so that also, I was telling somebody this, like, please follow your passion, but please make sure that there's jobs available before you throw everything into it. Because yes, it sounds amazing to go into this niche market, but sometimes you sit on the sidelines for so long that you can even become irrelevant at that point.
Spot on. And again, I totally agree with you. I still think that still tracks in that follow your passion, because that's what you are naturally talented at.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem, though, is your natural talent may not be what the corporates need.
Very true.
And that
Yeah.
may not be something popular out in the space, but there's still a niche for it, without a doubt. And that's, hence, you got to take your own route. And your own
Yeah.
route means, okay, I need to now become an entrepreneur so that I can create a sustainable business. And there's so many different jobs. Well, firstly jobs, but entrepreneurial opportunities that are out there. If you just think about, who would have thought sitting in a podcast would be a business model?
Very true. Yeah.
Before, it was only for, you'd get interviewed on a TV channel or a TV show, and that was it. Today, every Tom, Dick, or Mary is able to go out live around the world.
Very, very true. Another big aspect of it, and I think you touched on something there where you said corporates are very focused on profit, which is, fair. That's what they do. They need to obviously take.
We can debate about whether it's fair or not, but
fair
yeah.
point. But I think also the aspect that comes in is, we constantly see inflation at rising always, right? Look at the fuel price right now. Everybody is just stressed about it like you can't imagine. And then we don't see a correlated increase in salaries. So there's always that, okay, what I'm earning today is not going to be equal to my spending power tomorrow. And usually it's on a year-on-year basis, but as we're seeing right now, it's on a month-to-month basis because, example, we use the fuel price, right? So I think there's also that aspect, is that people are realizing they kind of need to do something extra. They kind of need to go out on their own, or even that side hustle that we mentioned. Because unfortunately, if you're working for a company for 10 years, your salary is never going to increase the way inflation is, and you're going to be sitting at a deficit somewhere down the line.
100% more. And with corporates, it's all about supply and demand.
Yeah.
And if more and more, as we said, the population is not shrinking, it's still there, and it's still growing on an annual basis. So there's always people coming into the marketplace. Now, the corporates, there's limited spaces. So what are corporates going to do? They're clearly going to cut the price down, because there's an oversupply. There's no demand for skills any longer. And hence, they're going to be constantly bringing down salaries, or even holding salaries. Again, salaries are not even keeping up with inflationary conditions as such year on year. And this has been happening for the past 20 years. So you're already sitting, people getting into jobs. Those jobs and the income that they derive in monthly cannot sustain a lifestyle. You'll notice, the big issue out there is most Gen Zs can't own a home any longer.
Yeah, because most are living, like we say, hand to mouth as that
Exactly.
example. I think I mentioned this example to you previously, and I always love this example, is picture you you playing a game of Monopoly, right? And you don't buy any properties whatsoever. All you do is go around the board and collect changed now quite a bit, but I always refer to it as you collect your 200 rand when you first begin,
first
right?
begin.
And as you go along, you're collecting your 200 rand. You don't buy any properties, anything. Yes, you start getting a nice little cash balance there. But at the end of the day, the rest of the players are going to start building houses and hotels, and your rental is going to become higher if you land on them. And all of a sudden, that money becomes less and less. So that 200 rand on the first round was great, but in the 10th or 15th round, that 200 rand doesn't mean that much anymore. And that's the aspect of a 9-to-5 job, is that effectively you going around the board, not really doing anything on your own or building something on your own, and that buying power just sort of gets a little bit lower and lower and lower.
Absolutely. And you made the point earlier around and ensuring that with funding and the amount of money that you have, it's never going to be enough, right? Inflation's always going to outstrip your income if your income's not keeping up. Well, again, coming back to the demand, supply and demand, if your skill's not in demand, people don't want to pay for that. And you're certainly not going to be able to afford to keep up with the inflationary rates. And companies know they've got a whole list of people behind the scenes waiting to take your job. So that whole job security, and this is another element of entrepreneurship and why entrepreneurship is becoming important, is because back in like my dad's day, even my early days, it was okay, job for life type thing. No longer.
Yeah.
Job for life is not a thing at all. So when we thought, oh, okay, getting involved in a business is so risky, I've got job security by having a proper job. That job security is gone. Not the case any longer.
Very good point there.
And hence, you might as well be spending that time and effort into you going and doing your own thing. And chances are, if you're following your passion, you develop your competence, you've got a very good chance of succeeding, without a doubt. Many a businessman and women have shown that
very, very
can
true.
be done.
As we wrap up here, one of the questions I ask all the guests, and it'll be quite interesting, after we've had this whole discussion, is what message would you like people to take away from this interview?
Mo, entrepreneurship. You got to engage, you got to embrace, and you got to harness entrepreneurship. It's so our platform at the moment, we've got our top 10 countries are countries like Iraq. Our viewership, our learnerships are Iraq, Algeria, Bangladesh, Nepal, Egypt, Libya, India, of course, definitely there. SA is 9, I think, Venezuela. So you can see it's all of these young countries that are hungry for growth. They're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for entrepreneurship. Because, it's young individuals. You're not going to get a job easily. Your educational system is on a decline. So that the skills that are relevant to keep us abreast with creating employment for ourselves is not there any longer. Entrepreneurship is no longer a nice to have. It's an essential. For us to create stability for us as individuals, entrepreneurship is a non-negotiable. So you got to be thinking about that. No person while at school now or even at varsity must be thinking of going into the corporate world. I noticed even with internships, for example, and learnerships, companies are now paying, you must have 5 years of experience.
Yeah.
So they're now offering free. So you don't get paid.
But just for you to get that experience.
Just to get the experience. 4 to 5, 7 years sometimes. So you can see where this is headed. You have to spend the time and the effort in developing your competence, because business, sure, it may be your side hustle, but it'll remain a side hustle if you don't spend time developing your competence and your skill to become a proper entrepreneur.
No, I love that. Theo, I can't thank you enough for joining. I always love our conversations. For those, everybody at home, Theo and I have these epic conversations, and I actually told him the other day, is like, we need to get one of these on camera, right? So that thing, we finally got to do that. So thank you so much for being with us today and sharing a bit about your story and Lawyers and Trainers Academy. We here at Chat EbT, we wish you all the success, and I love what you guys are doing, empowering youth, empowering entrepreneurs, to take on those steps and grow this economy, which always is a great benefit to everybody. So thank you so much, man.
Appreciate the time, Mo. And to all your viewers, I'd just like to leave you with this last message.
Yes, please.
Find us easily at lawyers.co.za. So it's lawyers, LAWYERZ at the end, .co.za, or trainers with the Z as well. Trainers.co.za. We've got a lot of free to consume information. We've got a whole info hub around entrepreneurship, around business, the business techniques, career coaching. We cover. So if you want to pivot your jobs, you want to learn how to become an entrepreneur, you want to change your career, we're there for you. A lot of free information. Please just check out our websites. And thank you for this opportunity.
No, it's our pleasure. No, it's our pleasure. Thank you very, very much, man.
Thanks, Mo.
All right, that's our show. I think Theo said it best. Entrepreneurship is not a want, it's slowly becoming a need. Once again, my name is Mohammed Ebrahim Tayob, and you're watching Chat EbT. Until next time.